am an engineer and a creative person. So therefore, by default, I like to research things and find out what others are doing. So I am in a lot of Facebook groups and different things that involve creative types like myself. One trend I've noticed over and over again is that people either A, will buy all the supplies they need to do a project, not that I've ever done that before, and then proceed to not do the project, or they'll try something once and then it doesn't come out perfect like they expect the first try to be, and then they quit. I'm like, okay, that's like, you have to practice. Like, you don't expect to pick up a basketball and go shoot hoops like a professional basketball player. So why would you pick up a creative hobby, say like photography or art or woodworking, and expect to be a professional on the first try? And then if you don't try, then how do you learn if you're afraid? I think this is all linked back to fear of failure, fear of inadequacy, or then that almighty comparison factor. On Instagram and all the different social medias, you tend to see people's best work, not their first tries, their oops, their engineering design changes, or all the other things that have probably gone wrong in their life. So I decided I wanted to create a YouTube channel that features creativity, such as tutorials, tips and tricks about the mindset to be creative. And one of the series I came up with is your first attempt in trying something. So my first attempt video is on acrylic paint pouring. As I was creating this video as my first attempt at paint pouring and my first attempt at creating a video, it dawned on me, why is my first attempt series not on my first attempt to create a video? It has been an interesting journey to say the least. So now I'm going to go over some of my experiences of trying to figure out how to create an actual video. So the first thing I had to figure out was how to record a video. That may sound silly to a lot of people, but I'm not really a video person. I have like an iPhone, so I know how to record on that, but I wasn't going to use that to create these videos. And because I already have a ton of cameras and camera gear and equipment for my photography hobby. I actually am a pretty good photographer too, so I had to like keep that expectation of video and photography in check, that they're not the same skill set and they use different things. So I got the camera out, I got multiple, I have one here for an example. I'm like, great, okay, so now how do I take a video? So I switched to the little video thing down here. I'm like, okay, that's a good first step, but then now how do I start and stop the video? I had no clue. I had to actually go back and look up the manual to discover, by the way, it's that red button on Nikon. It's how you start and stop your video. Great, first hurdle down. Then what happens if for 30 to 35 seconds your little video keeps shutting off and you don't know why? So I go to Google, I'm not having any luck, and then I figure out it's the memory card. As a photographer, the speed in class, I mean, if you're taking a bunch of burst shots matter, but for the most part, you can kind of get away with not quite an expensive video card, but that's not quite the same in videography. So my little basic SD cards, I could get like a 10 class is okay, but I ended up having to go buy higher speed memory cards, which my expensive one's in the camera now. So here's an example of my basic photography memory cards, but that wasn't working. So that we had to come up with a plan B. Then you have to figure out how to get them on your computer. So I had to buy a different drive. Then you had to figure out sound. So I bought like these little lanyards, these things, which I don't like. So I ordered a new mic to see if I can try that different. Then there's lighting. That's super fun. Luckily for me, I already had umbrellas and light stands and LED lighting, so I was able to kind of utilize some of my prior knowledge there, but it's a little different when you're sitting versus just a stationary subject, because I tend to do a lot of still life. Then the thing I didn't think about as a photographer is focus for me has never been a big deal because I'm behind the camera and can hold the focal button and focus and then shoot. When a video by yourself, I didn't know how to focus on where my face would be. I actually got creative and created a fake me. Here is fake me. I'm going to say my face drawing skills are pretty much on point. Hey, another spare tripod I had lying around, but it did the job. There's probably a little bit of this video you'll see is a bit out of focus and a couple others because we're still trying to figure it out for these first couple videos as we learn how to focus when your subject is yourself and moving. That is definitely something I didn't have to deal with as a photographer, particularly landscapes. I was on a tripod. Then also another thing is editing. Again, I probably had a little advantage over some novices that I know how to use Photoshop, but you don't use Photoshop. You use a different software. So then it's trying to go in and figure out what's the software, how to do transitions and all that stuff. Then on top of that, and then you have to make thumbnails, upload it to YouTube and figure out all that portion of this. So it's definitely been a big learning curve creating this first video. And I think it's hard myself even to not have these great expectations of what I envision my first videos to be versus reality. And I have to keep that in check. A lot of the YouTubers have been around for years, have production crews and editing crews where this is my first video. Then I also have to even more so keep it in check. I have to remind myself I've been taking photographs and been a photographer my whole life. So I can't expect my video skills to be the same as my photography skills because, again, I've been doing it my whole life. So I know I even myself have to stop comparison, keep it in check, and know I'm a beginner and this is just for fun and a growing curve. And hopefully I encourage you to step out there, do something scary, get in front of the camera than behind the camera. I think I still prefer behinds, but we'll see. And try something new. Don't be afraid of failure. Like, I'm putting my failures out there for the whole world to see. And you know what? I'm just going to embrace it and go with it. And it is what it is. So now, without further ado, I will go to my paint pouring video in all of its glory that I actually recorded in July. And then we'll come back for the conclusion. And yeah, it's November, by the way, when we're recording this. So it just took me a few months to get the courage up myself to get it edited, get it out there to show the world my first attempt at a YouTube video. Hello, today I am going to introduce a new video series. It's kind of an experiment to see if this works and hopefully you enjoy it. I am notorious for buying a ridiculous amount of craft supplies and getting super excited about new projects, then proceeding to not do them. And I had to ask myself, why? Why when I'm so excited about this do I get the supplies, bring it home, and then not do it? And I was thinking, well, maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm the only one who does this. Well, there are pros and cons of social media, and one pro is I now know I'm not alone. There are a lot of people out there who do the same thing I do, buy the supplies, either don't do it or try it once and then quit. I'm like, well, why do people do this? As an engineer, I of course have to get to the root cause of why do I do this to myself. First, we're going to start with is fear of failure. Why do I buy the supplies and then not actually do the project? Well, it can be rooted down to fear of failure. I am afraid to do the project because I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. Now, the kicker is when I bought the supplies, I was like, I could totally do this, so why when I get it home do I not do it? Then the other thing is that a lot of people do something one time and try it and it doesn't turn out perfect and they say, I quit, I give up, I can't do this. And again, that I think goes down to fear of inadequacy. And I think a lot of that may stem down to the pros and cons, again, of social media. We see all these amazing creators showing what they're doing, their projects, their art, their YouTube videos. They show it so easy. Look, I did this project. It came out beautiful. Look, it's amazing. And you go do it and you belong on an episode of Nailed It. Been there, done that a few hundred times. So that, I relate to that a little too much. But why do people fear failure, fear inadequacy? It's a loss of control. It's stepping outside of our comfort zone and trying something that's risky, taking a chance, doing something different. And another thing I think people forget, particularly with the arts, is that you're not amazing overnight. I think I've heard like the 10,000 hour rule to master something. You can't just try an art project one time, expect it to be amazing. Like, that isn't how it works. If you look at other things that people practice, they don't expect that. Music. How many people can pick up a clarinet and become amazing, or a musical instrument of any kind? I've been to enough 5th grade band concerts between mine and my siblings and friends' kids to know it ain't pretty. It's a lot different than the orchestra. I mean, you start off learning one note at a time. Sports. Again, the little kids in T-ball versus Major League Baseball. That takes time, practice, hours to get there. So why do we think that we can just take up an art or a craft and suddenly become amazing the first time without some failures, some mistakes, some learning and growing? So I need to take this own advice to heart and do my own projects and art and crafts and hobbies that I want to try, and then keep learning and growing. So I'm going to hopefully show you what it's like to start this journey and not just show the TikTok videos that are amazing after people have been doing this for years. And I gotta remind everybody, failure is part of growing. If you're not failing, you're not growing and you're not learning. A couple of my favorite failure examples is why is WD-40? Because everybody's favorite, it is the 40th attempt of solution to get the correct formula. And I think the ultimate story of failure and growth and learning is the Post-it note. Do you know that they were actually trying to find a super permanent glue when they developed Post-its? Talk about the ultimate failure. Not only is it not super permanent, it's restickable. But you know what? I don't know about you all. I love a Post-it note, so I am very happy that some scientist out there had a dismal failure for its intended target and goal. He just pivoted. So I am going to try different art, craft projects, and I always read once that you do write the book that you need. Well, I'm creating the channel that I need. So I'm going to start taking on all these different projects that I have been meaning to take on that I haven't exactly done. So as you see, I'm in my paint clothes, and my table currently is covered in parchment paper. Even though my craft table already has paint on it, let's not make it worse. And today we are painting. We are taking on acrylic pouring. I'm sure you have all seen the videos, the cool like strings and the beads and these amazing things in like 30 seconds that have this gorgeous artwork, and you're like, that is so cool. So I have never done this, ever, no clue. I just went and bought the supplies that I need to do it. So I'm going to take you on the journey of how I'm going to figure out how to do acrylic paint pouring. I will say I've done a lot of Google research of recipes for the pouring medium, etc. So I kind of know what I'm supposed to do. But as far as the physical act of doing it, yeah, so here goes nothing. And let's just hope I don't end up on an episode of America's Funniest Home Videos. First step is we all know that the key, or at least I hope we all know, that the key to every successful project is having the proper materials. So I did a lot of Google research and watching videos, etc. to figure out what exactly do I need for materials. First and foremost, you need something to put the paint on. So for example, I've seen people put stuff on wood, tile, or even canvas. I've also seen on acrylic and metal and jewelry and glassware and on and on and on. So let your imagination grow wild. So for today's project, we are going to use canvas. I got several of these. These come from Dollar Tree, well now $1.25 Tree, but so it's a pretty low cost initial investment to kind of figure out what I'm doing. Next up, we need paint. Now, you kind of have to have color. There are a lot of different paints you could use. You could use a craft paint. I got a whole stack of them. I have issues. Again, I think we've established that. You could use, this is more of a thinner craft acrylic. You could use other kinds of paint. You could use more of a thicker, medium bodied paint. So you can pick or choose your paint. The only difference in the type of paint you use are the ratios of pour to paint based on the viscosity of your paint so that it actually pours. So for example, this will take less pouring medium, this will take more just because this is a thicker paint. Next up, we have to have pouring medium to pour the paint. So there are actual pouring mediums you could purchase. You could actually buy pre-mixed paint for pouring, but since I already have a ridiculous number of paints, I decided to do the pouring medium route. That way I don't have to be buying 2 sets of paint. So I saw various people use Flood or Floetrol, I think is what's called. You can get this at Lowe's. I think I wrote this down, ignore my notes here, for like $15 at Lowe's, which is cheaper than buying it on Amazon. So check out your Lowe's. Other recipes I saw used Elmer's Glue All. I think this is like 18 bucks on Amazon. Again, this is another option. I think I saw somebody use Mod Podge, but I think the issue I saw with some of the glues is that they yellow because they're not acid-free. So I do believe they also make an acid-free glue. Then there's actual pouring medium. Since I'm a beginner, we're going to go the cheap route and go with these. They're about the same cost when you mix them. I think it turns out I saw within about 5 or 6 cents varying depending on the two. Next, we have to have a container to pour from to our canvas. I have seen a lot of people use squeeze bottles. I have a bunch of these I got because I thought, hey, if I do this more, and it's great because they're marked. Today I will not be using squeeze bottles because again, this is just the first, I don't know what I'm doing yet, and I don't want to invest that much paint until I have a good idea of what works. There's also plastic cups, paper cups. I stole these from my bathroom, little 5-ounce Dixie cups. Paint stirring, otherwise known as popsicle sticks. Regular plastic cups, and I saw these super cool ones on Amazon that have measurements on them. So this will be really handy when you're mixing paint or resin or any other craft project and need to have an idea of how many fluid ounces are in the cup. Another alternative is to take one of these and pour water of how many ounces. So I know about to here is about 1.5 ounces. So that's another alternative, and stir sticks. So we got the containers, we got the paint. Next up, we gotta like make a pattern. You've seen all the cool things, right? The beads, strings, different palette knives. Again, another impulse purchase. I have ADHD and have issues. By the way, if I make an ADHD joke, I legit do diagnosed, so. Strainers, again, another Amazon purchase. And then you could use a heat gun or a blow dryer. I have a heat gun and mine came with different attachments. You could also use a blow dryer, but I probably wouldn't use a blow dryer you're planning on also using on your hair because I've seen some of them in the videos and they're definitely pretty dirty. So then after our project dries, we then have to clear coat it. I've seen people use resin, lacquer. I already own a acrylic coating for glaze and UV resistant, so I'll just use these if I get a project that I really like. So now that I got all my materials gathered up, next up will be mixing the paint and the pouring medium. First up is mixing our pouring medium. I first had to figure out how much paint do I need. So I found quite a few different equations online and different calculators, so I kind of did some reverse math and figured out that it takes 0.035 ounces per square inch according to some of these, and I think one even had 4. So I figured out I have an 11 by 14 canvas, so I did the math here, my handy dandy clipboard. That's 154 square inches, which means I need 5.4 to 6 ounces. So we're going to call it 6 ounces. How accurate is this equation? I don't know. We're going to find out. Do I need more? Do I need less? Still not sure. So I also found quite a few recipes for how much to blend. So for a craft acrylic paint, they said that I need to have 2-part paint to 1 part pour. And then I saw where I need 2-part pour to 1 part water. So if I need 6 ounces of total, that means I need 2-part paint, which is 4 ounces, and then 2 ounces of pour to get to my 6 ounces. So the 2 to 1 means I need about 0.67 ounces of water. So my little handy dandy measuring cup has about 1 ounce in it, a little under. We'll top this off to the 2 ounces. A little bit more, but that's okay. I don't think this has to be quite the exact science, so we're just trying to get in the ballpark here. Stir this up. Okay. So I'm cheap. So since I'm just doing a very basic pour, I decided to use just 5 little cups to see how this goes. So first we're going to do a mixture of a base color of a white or a black or some kind of a neutral. I'm just going with a very basic white craft paint. And I'm going to do 2 ounces or a little over 2 ounces of the white, kind of to get more and a little bit less of the colors. as I said earlier, I know that about to here, I think was about an ounce. So we'll go ahead and if I do there, about here, we'll throw that in there. So I know that's about an ounce. Okay, I should probably be better about not covering up my face when I'm trying to. That looks like about a little over an ounce. So now we need pour medium. That's about an ounce, a half an ounce. Stir it up. This looks like a decent consistency. It feels like it pours, but not too runny. Again, I'm sure as I do this more, I'll be better at figuring out what do I actually need for consistency. So next up, I read that they said to use maybe a metallic. Oops. Maybe one should prepare ahead and actually have their paints open. Open sesame. Okay, paint open. Now we'll shake it up. So I decided I have this rose gold I obviously just bought that we're going to try. I want a little less in this case because I mean this is more of the color additive. Now I'll pour a little bit more paint medium. I know I'm about to here, so I need to go about to there for a 1 to 2. Hopefully I didn't get that too runny. So it's a little runnier than the white. That's okay though. Next, I have 3 accent colors. So I'm like, how many colors do you use? The professionals or people who just could use like 6 colors, 2 colors, 8 colors, I don't know. The beginner, they said maybe stick with 5 or fewer. So I have my base, my metallic. So I'm just going to use a little bit of these 3 colors as sort of my accent colors. I'm using kind of a burgundy. I thought that would be pretty with the rose gold. Hopefully it comes out. Okay, I'm using a little bit less of these just because these are accent colors for me. Kind of a dark blue. Just put a little in the bottom there. And a lighter blue. Next, we'll pour some of our pouring medium in. Proper scientists would do a little bit more exact, but we're being artistic today. So we're going to mix these up. Probably not as exciting as watching the pouring, but we'll see if. Yeah, it's going to probably need a little bit more mixing up. Our blue, our red, then we'll have our lighter blue-green. So now I think I have about 2, 3.5, 4, 5, like I'm not sure, pretty close I think to 6 ounces. So it looks like it filled more than 1 cup. So let's see how this goes. I will reset and then I will show the pouring process of these on a 11 by 14. There are multiple different techniques in pouring. There's a clean pour, which is 6 individual cups you pour directly onto the canvas and manipulate. There is a dirty pour where then I would layer these into one cup, then pour them. There is a flip cup where you put them into one cup, flip the cup, lift up. Then there's other drag and different techniques, or I've seen the ones with the cool strings. Those are more advanced techniques. Usually I'm kind of a, hey, I'm going to go all in to the biggest. Let's just start with a clean pour and see how this goes. Time to start pouring. For this first pour, I did speed up the video to be 10 times the normal speed, so that way you guys don't have to watch for too long, but can still see the end result of what all happened. I discovered pretty early on that I had made the paint a little bit thick. And I had seen that people had basically started with the white, you add the colors, and you can see here I'm struggling to get the paint to move anywhere or go anywhere or do anything. And it was just kind of gloppy and thick. So definitely I think a lesson learned with paint pouring is trying to figure out what is the right consistency to be able to get the paint to spread how you want it. And you can see I got out a tool of the paint supplies, so that way I could try and do something with this to get it to come up with some kind of an abstract geometric pattern. And at the end of the day, I ended up going a completely different route and going through and moving the paint around once it had gotten a little harder and with a palette knife and getting a little bit more abstract than we have here, just because I had definitely made the paint way too thick. So that was my first lesson learned. We're back again. This time we were using more of a traditional acrylic type thicker paint instead of a craft paint with our pouring medium. So I ended up with a lot thinner pour medium. Let's see if that does any better. And also from our lessons learned, we have also got baby wipes and paper towels a lot closer and handier. And then I put a smaller end on my heat gun thinking I'd get more airflow to try to get the effect that I'm hoping for. So we'll see if this helped at all to make this a little bit more of a success. This is now our second attempt at doing this. So this time, as you can see already, I definitely am getting a lot better pour in this. It's moving a lot better with the gun, and you're getting more of that interesting flow, texture, kind of feathering look that I was hoping to get, that I had seen online and what other people have been doing. Maybe almost a little too thick. So again, it's like, where's the happy medium between getting good flow or getting it to be more solid, or depending on what you want and what you're trying to get. I do also believe that I discovered early on that in this one that I should have had a little excess pouring medium or a little excess white, or that way you can kind of get what you're looking for. So for the next round, I then, for number 3, had a little extra white. That way I could truly get the canvas covered, and then that way I could go over on top. And you can see the third set of colors. And this one definitely turned out the best. I'm getting the feathering look that I was hoping for with my heat gun. I have the extra white that I wanted that I learned from round 2. And I think this one is definitely the best result and worked the smoothest of all 3. It's all about a game of lessons learned and figuring out what doesn't work, and how to get the end results you're looking for. I hope you enjoyed my first attempt at a YouTube video and you've actually made it to the end to do my conclusion portion of my first attempt at both paint pouring and a video. Definitely had some sound issues. I think my camera got bumped, had a little focus issues. It's all a big growing and learning curve. We also had a few more paint pouring fun adventures. One of the first fun adventures is that I have a picture I will have inserted after, is trying to get my paint not thick enough. So I ended up playing with the first one more, and I was able to get it to be more interesting actually, because I kind of swirled the super thick paint versus the kind of hot mess I left it in. Another thing I will recommend not using that I tried for the first is I tried to use these thin cardboard canvases from Dollar Tree. Well, the paint got on the back and it warped my boards. Oops. I'd probably stick with wood or tile or something on more of a stretched canvas versus the cardboard. It didn't work so hot. And because of that, this one kind of ran, so it doesn't quite look like I finished because all the paint kept running to the middle, so I kind of kept messing with it to see if I could get it to not look silly. Yeah, that didn't work. Fortunately, I noticed the board warping issue after the first two, so by the time I got to the third one and laid it out to dry, I just laid it flat and it didn't warp as bad, but you can see where it's kind of bumpy on the canvas. Definitely a lesson learned. We won't be doing that again, but I would say this one probably turned out the best. And the other thing I learned is that the dry time for this stuff isn't just the normal paint dry time, it is a long freaking time. Like, we're talking overnight. And it's kind of interesting and fun to watch as you can see the texture of the canvas start to come through. So I had a lot of fun with paint pouring, and I did this back in the summer, and I have done quite a few projects since. A couple of wood pumpkins I cut out. I put something in a frame. I did part of a barn quilt with some acrylic paint pour, and we'll do some more of the woodworking type and how to incorporate these kind of skills into your woodworking in later tutorials. But I definitely am super happy I took the risk. I tried a new skill, and now for me it's a ton of fun and something I definitely want to keep going. And I also know for my YouTube video experiences to really watch those focal points when you're shooting down, that it doesn't get bumped, and try to figure out a better way to kind of feature when you're shooting down and how to make some improvements there. But I have faith I can figure it out. I hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, please hit subscribe, like it, comment. If you have ideas for future things I can try my craziness and first attempts on film, I am more than willing to consider them. And be creative and go have fun. Thank you for watching.